So thank you all again for being here this morning for our fourth pre-orientation webinar. This morning's topic is Overview of National Service and AmeriCorps. We have a guest speaker today. Marcia is with the Michigan Community Service Commission. MSC is the entity that provides our AmeriCorps funding here in the state of Michigan. And Marcia has experience as a program director with AmeriCorps and also now working at the commission, and she has graciously volunteered to tell you all a little bit more about National Service and AmeriCorps. Before we get started, a reminder that *6 mutes your line and *7 unmutes. We've had some problem with background noise in the past on our webinars, so I'm going to try not to mute you all, but I will mute you if I need to, just for the sake of everybody's ability to hear. But you're always welcome to ask questions, and there is the chat box that we can see any questions that you have coming through. So with that, I will hand it off to Marcia. Marcia, thank you so much for being here this morning.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Rachel. So today we're going to be talking about all things national service, and then we're going to drill down deep into AmeriCorps. So this is our agenda for this morning's webinar. We'll be going over National Service 101. We'll be exploring the different services and programs that are provided by various national service programs throughout AmeriCorps and Senior Corps. We'll be talking about the structure of national service, so kind of how all the different pieces fit together. And then I said we'll be drilling down deeper into AmeriCorps, so then we'll switch our focus over to the AmeriCorps focus areas and talk about the different kinds of service that members provide throughout various AmeriCorps programs. We'll talk about some guiding principles of AmeriCorps, so just some overarching themes that all AmeriCorps programs really focus on. We'll talk about some AmeriCorps terminology and some words that are important to use and others that are important not to use when talking about your AmeriCorps service. We'll do a deep dive into AmeriCorps prohibited activities, so those activities that you're not allowed to participate or engage in during your AmeriCorps service, so that you're in compliance with all of the various policies and procedures. And then I'll give you a few different AmeriCorps resources for you as you are doing your AmeriCorps service terms. So let's first talk about kind of national service in that broad overview. So when we talk about national service, we're really talking about the programs under the Corporation for National and Community Service. And those programs are in two large categories, so the AmeriCorps program and the Senior Corps program. And ultimately what national service focuses on is responding to the most pressing issues around our country in local ways, utilizing national service members like AmeriCorps and Senior Corps volunteers. So there's such a wide variety of services that AmeriCorps and Senior Corps provide in their communities, and members do a wide variety of service basically to make their communities safer, stronger, smarter, and those kinds of things that you'll learn about today. All right, so let's talk about some of the history behind national service. So even before kind of AmeriCorps and Senior Corps was created, back in the 1930s, there was the New Deal. And the New Deal was really responding to the Great Depression and some of the challenges that communities were facing at that time. And so there was a work program that was created called the Civilian Conservation Corps, and this was primarily for young men at the time, and these were young men that were out of work, and so this program got them working, but also doing a lot of public good, so doing various conservation projects and building structures and infrastructure in our country. In the 1960s, that's when Peace Corps was created, so it took national service basically out across the globe. So Americans basically were serving and providing different resources for all sorts of different communities. And it happened outside of the United States. But it was a really great way for Americans to help to make a difference in the world. Also in the 1960s, there was a big focus on the war on poverty. So we realized that there was a lot of rural poverty specifically and in communities that were underrepresented. And so in order to focus on poverty reduction, the program VISTA was created. So VISTA actually is an AmeriCorps program now, but at its inception, it was a standalone program of the War on Poverty. So VISTA stands for Volunteers in Service to America, and it always has an anti-poverty focus. So we'll get into that a little bit more here in just a minute. And then in the early 1990s, AmeriCorps NCCC was created. NCCC is a really unique AmeriCorps program. It's only for young people. You have to be 18 to 24 to participate, but it's a traveling program. It's 10 months, and AmeriCorps members are in small teams, and they get deployed out for a variety of different service experiences. So they do a lot with disaster response. They also do a lot of conservation types of projects. And then nonprofits can request an NCCC project to bring an NCCC team to their community if there's a particular need that community has. In 1993, that's when the National and Community Service Trust Act was passed, and that actually created the Corporation for National and Community Service and ultimately AmeriCorps. The very first cohort of AmeriCorps started in 1994, so that was the very first program year. And then in 2009, the Serve America Act was passed. The next slide is about that. So this legislation really was focused on expanding national service, and it did a couple of really great things. One, increased the education award that was attached to AmeriCorps. So up until this point, the AmeriCorps Education Award was the same amount year after year, but at the time that the Serve America Act was passed, they decided to match the education award amount to the Pell Grant. And so as the Pell Grant increased, and the Pell Grant is for lower income students, the education award would be raised to match that amount. So right now we're right under like $6,000 for the education award. In previous years it was, in the $4,000 range. So it has gradually increased over the years. The other thing that the Serve America Act did is allow more non-traditional AmeriCorps members to be able to pass the education award along to a child or a stepchild. Up until that point, they didn't have that opportunity, but individuals who are 55 and older at the time that they're serving in an AmeriCorps state or national program are able to now transfer their education award to a child, stepchild, grandchild, step-grandchild, or a foster child. So this legislation made it possible for them to really still utilize that benefit, but understand that those older and non-traditional AmeriCorps members, may not want to use that award for themselves, but may get more benefit out of passing that along to a child or a grandchild. And then also in 2009, that's when the priority areas were identified around education, health, the environment, veterans, and economic opportunity. And we'll touch on each one of those here in a little bit. So there are three main AmeriCorps programs. So there's AmeriCorps State and National, which is the program that you all are in as a Michigan's AmeriCorps program. There's AmeriCorps Vista, and there's AmeriCorps NCCC. And they each kind of have their own flavor and a different approach, but all AmeriCorps members, regardless of what type of program they're involved in, are doing things to help strengthen communities. So we'll talk first about AmeriCorps State and National. State and national programs are very much focused on direct service. So members are interacting very closely with service recipients, whether that's youth or adults in the communities. So they very much have a close relationship to the service recipients that are receiving the service that they're providing. The other thing that I think is unique about state and national is it tends to be kind of a team-oriented approach. So, AmeriCorps state and national programs are teams of members that serve together in a variety of different ways. The difference between state and national, so AmeriCorps state programs, the funding comes from the Corporation for National and Community Service, and then it goes to a state commission. So in Michigan, we're the Michigan Community Service Commission. So the money comes to us, and then ultimately we sub-grant out to a variety of state AmeriCorps programs. So this year we have 29 state AmeriCorps programs in the state of Michigan. And then there are national AmeriCorps programs. So those programs have to exist in more than one state throughout the country. And they have a more direct relationship with CNCS. So CNCS grants an organization, a host organization, for a national AmeriCorps program, and then that program would exist in multiple states. But they have a lot of similarities, so they're kind of within one large bucket. Ultimately, AmeriCorps members really focus on getting things done for America, and there's a lot of diversity as far as what the different types of state and national programs provide. So things like financial education, tax prep assistance, like your program provides, education, so around tutoring and mentoring children, different kinds of like STEM programming, things like that, environmental stewardship, conservation kinds of focuses, Healthy Futures, which is around increasing access to health care or helping people basically start having a healthier lifestyle and learning nutrition and physical activity, housing resources and services, disaster prep, preparedness and response, public safety, crime reduction. And there's so many more, but those are some of the big categories that AmeriCorps state and national members focus on. Then there's AmeriCorps Vista. Again, it's Volunteers in Service to America is what that acronym stands for. And this is more of a capacity building program. So these individuals aren't doing the direct service like AmeriCorps state and national members are. They're the behind-the-scenes members. But ultimately what they're doing is helping to increase the capacity of organizations and nonprofits to serve their communities. So they're kind of seen as a catalyst for change and working to advance global solutions. So instead of tutoring children, they might be creating curriculum for tutors to utilize. They might be recruiting volunteers, training volunteers, and then those volunteers do direct service type of work. So that's VISTA, and again, they have a poverty reduction focus as well. And then there's NCCC, which stands for the National Civilian Community Corps. And like I said before, it's a residential team-based approach for young adults, 18 to 24. It's a 10-month service term. And these young people serve in teams of 8 to 10, and then they are kind of deployed out for kind of shorter-term service projects throughout a region that they serve. So there's 5 regions. This next slide actually shows a map of those regions. So each one of these stars represents the regional campus. So that's kind of home base for the NCCC members, which is a college campus typically. And then they're deployed out someplace within their kind of color map region for those shorter term service missions. So again, they do a lot when it comes to environmental types of work, sustainability, conservation efforts. And they do quite a bit of disaster response when there are natural disasters in a community or in a larger region. All right, next we're going to switch gears and talk about Senior Corps. So this is a completely different portion of CNCS National Service Program. And the common theme with Senior Corps is it's for individuals 55 years or older that are serving in these programs. So the first Senior Corps program that we're going to talk about is foster grandparents. So these are individuals that are serving as role models, mentors, and friends to children and young adults. So primarily they're in schools, but they can be in other types of environments as well, helping young people to connect with somebody and to give them some additional support. So foster grandparents typically serve about 15 to 40 hours per week. They receive some like liability insurance and meals while they're on duty. They get reimbursed for transportation and are provided some monthly training. And those that meet certain income requirements also receive a small stipend for their service hours. RSVP is another Senior Corps program, so it stands for Retired Senior Volunteer Program, and it's one of the largest networks of volunteers across the nation. And RSVP, I think, is probably the closest comparison to AmeriCorps State and National. So these individuals do a lot of direct service as well and have a very broad range of service that they provide, just like our state and national programs do. The nice thing about RSVP is that these individuals get to really decide how they want to serve and how much they want to serve. So they can serve a very short amount of time, or they can serve in more of a full-time capacity. It really is up to the volunteer to decide. And then there's senior companions. So senior companions are individuals 55 and older, and they're partnered up with an average of 2 to 4 adult clients to help them live independently on their own. And so they go out and, are checking in on individuals that, maybe can't get out as much on their own. They can help with transportation to doctor's appointments or shopping trips, things like that. So it's just a way to help them stay connected and socially engaged, but also to provide a support system for seniors to help them live independently and not need additional support. Senior companion volunteers, they get some pre-service orientation and training as well. They also get that supplemental insurance, and they qualify for a stipend if they meet certain income requirements. The other program that CNCS currently has is called the Volunteer Generation Fund, or VGF. And this was created under that Serve America Act, and it really is focused on increasing support for volunteer organizations and state commissions to boost the impact of volunteers in addressing critical community needs. So VGF is really about supporting that structure. So they help create different volunteer recruitment and retention strategies and invest in various volunteer management practices. So it's just a way for state commissions and other larger scale volunteer organizations to strengthen that network and improve their processes. All right, so let's talk about the national service structure. So again, at the top of the structure is the Corporation for National and Community Service. It is part of the federal government and receives tax dollars that way. And then underneath the corporation are state commissions like the Michigan Community State Commission. And we oversee state AmeriCorps programs, so in our case, Michigan's AmeriCorps program, and also that Volunteer Generation Fund. And so we have individuals within our state commission that focus on those various areas. CNCS also directly grants to national AmeriCorps programs. So again, these are AmeriCorps programs that operate in more than one state, and those organizations apply directly to CNCS for that funding. And then CNCS provides a lot of the oversight that state commissions provide to state AmeriCorps programs. CNCS also oversees the NCCC team. So again, there's 5 different regions across the country, and that's that traveling AmeriCorps program. And then there's the CNCS state offices. So our state office is in Detroit, and the state office of CNCS oversees the VISTA program in our state and also oversees the Senior Corps programs in our state. So now we're going to really be focusing on AmeriCorps moving forward. And so AmeriCorps really has 6 key focus areas, and we're going to look at each one of those and talk about them for a couple of minutes. So the first area that AmeriCorps really focuses on is disaster services. So increasing the preparedness that communities have for disasters, improving readiness to respond to disasters, helping individuals recover from disasters, and helping individuals mitigate disasters. So AmeriCorps members are involved in a variety of different ways. So whether it is going out and providing education to the communities or actually physically responding to small-scale disasters or even like home fires, things like that, and those larger-scale national disasters as well. So the flooding, for instance, in North Carolina. All right, and then there's economic and workforce development, which is where your AmeriCorps program fits primarily, and this is helping economically disadvantaged people, enhancing things like their literacy around personal finances, transitioning into and remaining in affordable housing, and improving their employability skills. So members in this category provide a lot of that financial education. They help people with their income taxes. They help individuals that have barriers to employment overcome those, provide assistance with like creating resumes and doing a variety of trying to think of a good example, but just various supports for individuals that are job seekers to help them overcome barriers that they might experience. All right, and then education is a really big focus area for AmeriCorps programs, and this really focuses around improving educational outcomes or school readiness for economically disadvantaged children. And so the education focus is anywhere from preschool and early education through college. So improving educational and behavioral outcomes for students in lower achieving schools, and supporting economically disadvantaged students in post-secondary institutions. So we have like education core programs that are working with like pre-K and also first through third graders on their reading skills or their math skills. There's like City Year that's involved in kind of the whole school, whole child approach to supporting schools that have challenges and in underserved communities. And then there are programs like Advise Michigan that are helping juniors and seniors be ready for college, helping them navigate applying for college and applying for financial aid, those kinds of things. All right, and then we have energy and conservation environment kind of program. And so they focus on energy efficiency, reducing water consumption, renewable energy use, ecosystem improvements, things like that. So some of these programs are actually out in the community, removing invasive species and helping to, deal with any kind of environmental issues that a community may be dealing with. Others are providing education either in schools or in other settings on these specific areas, so encouraging, recycling and teaching people how to save water and all those different important lessons and topics around energy and conservation. Then there's Healthy Futures. So Healthy Futures really focuses on improving access to primary and preventative health care, increasing seniors' ability to remain in their homes, and increasing physical activity and improving youth nutrition. So Cherry Health AmeriCorps is the program that I came out of, and we really focused on increasing access to primary and preventative health care. We know that people that see the doctor regularly and receive that preventative care, it reduces the overall cost to the system and helps catch things early on before they become major issues, and helping youth and all sorts of populations increase their physical activity and eat more nutritious foods and the importance of doing so. All right, and then there are programs around veterans and military families. And this focus area is really very broad in the fact that it focuses on a particular population, not necessarily on a particular service. So it positively impacts veterans' quality of life and improves military family strength, connecting veterans to volunteer service opportunities, and providing mentorship and tutoring to military children, legal assistance, affordable housing, healthcare, counseling, and more. So again, really thinking of all the other focus areas that we've already talked about, but specifically directing services towards veterans and military families to making sure that they're not falling through the cracks and are able to navigate systems to access various resources. All right, so let's talk a little bit about AmeriCorps guiding principles. And so these are kind of overarching themes for all AmeriCorps programs that are important. So first, we're going to talk about getting things done. So that's kind of the AmeriCorps motto, really getting things done to make our communities safer, stronger, and smarter. And so we know that a lot of organizations, are trying to do great things in their community, and they just don't have the capacity to do as much as they'd like. And that's where AmeriCorps oftentimes comes in. They have a particular community need, and they want to address it in a unique and kind of innovative way. And so they think about how can we utilize national service members like AmeriCorps to be the boots on the ground and try these new innovative techniques and really focus on a particular community issue and address it. And we know that AmeriCorps members have a passion for helping their community and really have that enthusiasm. And so they get in there, they build those relationships with individuals in the community, and they are able to do things that staff at those organizations wouldn't have been able to do without them. So that's really what getting things done is all about, at least in my opinion. We've talked about strengthening communities, so all of the AmeriCorps programs are really designed around, each community has its own unique needs and challenges, and AmeriCorps is there to really have a local approach to solving those community issues or addressing those community issues. And really, in Michigan, it's over 1,000. Michigan's AmeriCorps members each year are coming in and really making a difference in their communities on an everyday basis. So that strengthens our communities in huge ways. Encouraging responsibility. So AmeriCorps also really focuses on increasing civic engagement of its AmeriCorps members and also in the communities. So thinking about, how you can be engaged in what's happening in your community, participating in making your world a better place, and giving back in a variety of different ways. So AmeriCorps is really all about encouraging people to do that during their AmeriCorps service term, but also beyond their AmeriCorps service term. So really making it a commitment that you carry forward with you as you leave AmeriCorps to be involved and engaged in your communities and in volunteerism, hopefully for the rest of your life. And then expanding opportunity. So we think about AmeriCorps as this opportunity for people to come in and give back to their community, but we also want to make sure that AmeriCorps is giving to those individuals as well. So part of AmeriCorps is really designed around really giving back to the members through professional development, giving you all opportunities that you may not have otherwise in a maybe more entry-level position, and also providing that education award upon successful completion of your program so that you can either pay down student loans that you've already taken out or that you can continue your education to broaden your horizons and make you a really amazing candidate for whatever's next in life. So I always tell AmeriCorps members you get out of this program what you put into it. So if you want to have a leadership opportunity, seek out that leadership opportunity, and it pays back in dividends because it really gives you an opportunity to stretch your wings and to try something new and potentially even, fail at something. It's okay to fail during AmeriCorps and to learn new skills and figure out, how to make those changes moving forward. So really take that opportunity to really expand your horizons during your AmeriCorps service term. So this is the AmeriCorps Pledge. We will be saying the pledge together at Michigan's member celebration in November. So that typically brings together 600 plus AmeriCorps members from all around the state. And we sort of close out that event saying the AmeriCorps Pledge. So the AmeriCorps Pledge is, I will get things done for America to make our people safer, smarter, and healthier. I will bring Americans together to strengthen our communities. Faced with apathy, I will take action. Faced with conflict, I will seek common ground. Faced with adversity, I will persevere. I will carry this commitment with me this year and beyond. I am an AmeriCorps member, and I will get things done. So that's really what it's kind of all about, is learning how to navigate systems to make our communities stronger. And AmeriCorps and national service is not an easy thing. There's a lot of challenges that you'll face throughout your AmeriCorps service term. And so when those challenges arise, I think coming back to the pledge and really seeing, that faced with adversity, I'm going to take action, or faced with conflict, I'm going to speak common ground, faced with adversity, I will persevere, and really think about what that means to you to help kind of pull you through those challenging times so that you can continue to make an impact and get the benefits out of this program that you were hoping when you decided to become an AmeriCorps member. So this next slide is kind of getting us into AmeriCorps terminology, and I hear this all the time. People say AmeriCorps. It's not AmeriCorps. I know there's a P and an S on the end of it, but it's like Marine Corps or Peace Corps. So you pronounce it Corps, AmeriCorps, not AmeriCorps. We're not dead yet, so keep that in mind. And it might not be you saying it, but sometimes people within your organizations or even people that you just mix and mingle with, correct them. Let them know how to say it correctly. All right. It's important to know, too, that when you're in AmeriCorps, you are an AmeriCorps member. You really have a very unique role within your organization that is not a staff role. You're not an intern. You're not an employee. You're not a community volunteer. You're there for a very specific reason. Your AmeriCorps program kind of put together a grant and outlined specifically what AmeriCorps members are going to be doing and how that's going to impact the community. So you are a member of a national service program called AmeriCorps, so you all are AmeriCorps members. And you are providing service during your AmeriCorps service term. It's not a job. It's not work. It's not an internship, and it's not a volunteer position. You're really making a commitment to a year-long national service experience, and what you're doing on a day-to-day basis may feel like work sometimes, but it's a national service program, so you're providing service to your community on a day-to-day basis while you're in AmeriCorps. And that service really matters in a big way. So remember that, again, when you face challenges and difficulties, that you're there to make a difference and that you will make a difference. And sometimes in the day-to-day it doesn't feel like you're making a big difference, but towards the end of your service term, when you turn around and look behind you and kind of add up all that you've done, it really is quite a lot. And especially for just a short term, year of your life, you can make a really huge difference in your community. So keep that in mind. So AmeriCorps by the numbers. So know that you are part of this larger national service movement. That's pretty exciting. And there have been more than 1 million AmeriCorps members that have served since 1994, so you're in good company. Members have given over 1.4 billion hours of service during their AmeriCorps service terms. And in response, they have earned $3.3 billion in that Siegel AmeriCorps Education Award that they can utilize towards paying down student loans or continuing their education. 2.3 million is the number of community volunteers that are mobilized or managed by AmeriCorps members. So that's another piece of AmeriCorps, is that we don't want it just to be national service members, but we also want to encourage AmeriCorps members to recruit volunteers and encourage others to be involved in volunteerism. Some programs, it's a big part of what they do is they're utilizing volunteers regularly. Other programs need to be a little bit more creative about how and when they utilize volunteers or encourage volunteerism in their community. But that is definitely a part of AmeriCorps, and it's an intentional piece of the experience. And then there's over 21,000 unique AmeriCorps sites where members serve. So we only have, like I said, 29 state AmeriCorps programs, but each one of those programs has a number of unique sites where members serve. So know that there are over 21,000 all across the country each year. All right, let's talk about a few AmeriCorps initiatives and things that I hope that you're excited to be involved in throughout your service term. So first is National Days of Service. So this is an opportunity to really encourage national service members and other community volunteers to get together for large-scale national service projects on specific days or around a specific time. So the 9/11 Day of Service and Remembrance is just passed. So I hope that you were all able to participate in something. And if you didn't this year, planning on being involved in a National Day of Service next year around 9/11. There's also Martin Luther King Jr. Day of Service, which happens in January. And our programs oftentimes will collaborate and get together and do different MLK Day service projects throughout our community that involve other volunteers as well. And then Global Youth Service Day is another national day of service that a lot of programs participate in, and this one really focuses, it's in April, and it really focuses on getting youth involved in service. And it's important for youth to not only experience volunteerism, but to also be aware that AmeriCorps exists. It's like the best kept secret in the country, and it's a great opportunity for us to sort of be volunteer mentors to young people and encourage them to consider national service as a pathway to whatever their hopes and dreams are in the future, a way to give back for a year of their life. There's also AmeriCorps Week, which happens in March, and it's a week that's really focused on promoting AmeriCorps and also really thanking you all for committing a year of your life to AmeriCorps service. And each program kind of goes at it in different ways, but it's an opportunity to maybe do additional service projects, to do some different kinds of promotional and awareness campaigns around social media or company newsletters, things like that, and just an opportunity for you to do something fun together as a team. And then there's also National Service Recognition Day, which also happens in April, right around spring break, which is a challenge. But ultimately, National Service Recognition Day is about making sure that our local, city, state, and federal government really sees the value of national service and sees the impact that we're making on a day-to-day basis. So National Service Recognition Day really focuses on bringing AmeriCorps members together with mayors, with commissioners, with legislators, and really talking about what we do in our various programs and the impact that we're having in our community. So it's a great way to get some additional awareness, and we do have a lot of champions and supporters of national service around the country, so many of them come out for these kinds of things. And if they're unable to come out because of the time of year that it happens to be, oftentimes we'll provide like a proclamation talking about their support of national service, which is really great. All right. So some statewide and regional events that will be coming up that you can look forward to this year. So first off is Member Celebration, which is in November. We talked about this briefly, but it is basically like a large conference and convening of AmeriCorps members within our state. It happens in Lansing. It's on a Thursday. I can't think of the date right off the top of my head. I think it's the 15th of November. And it brings members from all different programs together. There's a lot of just general information about AmeriCorps that's provided. There's a keynote speaker that's really motivational. There are some spotlights that various AmeriCorps members will talk to the crowd about what they specifically are doing in their AmeriCorps service term. And then there's workshops that members can select from. So there's a morning workshop and an afternoon workshop, and there are about a dozen different workshop options for members to choose from. And so members can kind of find a particular training opportunity that they're interested in participating in and being involved there. There's also vendors that come, so a variety of different like colleges and universities, Service Share Alliance, other types of vendors that are interested in reaching out to national service members and letting them know about like that they match the AmeriCorps Education Award at their school, or that they support national service members in a variety of ways. So that's Member Celebration. It's a whole lot of fun, and it's a really great way to not only bond with your team, but to meet members from other AmeriCorps programs and hopefully build some relationships that will last beyond your AmeriCorps service term. Michigan's AmeriCorps has a program called LeaderCorps, which you may or may not have already heard about, but each program is able to select one member from their team to represent their program as a LeaderCorps member. And these individuals get together a couple of times each year. One is the Friday right after member celebration. And basically these individuals act as a liaison between Michigan's AmeriCorps and their program. So it's an opportunity to really step up and be a leader and to provide some extra communication from your program to the state level and from the state level back to your program. So if you're interested in being involved in Leader Corps, please let Rachel know. Each program selects their Leader Corps member differently, and so I'll let her handle explaining that to you all. And then there's our regional Russ Malby signature service projects that happen in May. This is a highlight for a lot of members, but basically around Michigan we have 6 regions that we identify with AmeriCorps. So we have West Michigan, Mid-Michigan, Southeast Michigan, the Flint Tri-Cities area, Northern Michigan, which is in the northern part of the Lower Peninsula, and then the Upper Peninsula. And each one of those regions, the program directors, the Leader Corps members, myself as the AmeriCorps Partnerships Coordinator, we work together to create a full day of service for AmeriCorps members throughout that region. So they take one particular community, find a large-scale service project. Each region gets to pick a T-shirt color, so you can see in the photo. We've got orange on top, yellow in the middle, purple on the bottom, and then they do a large-scale service project together as a large team. It can either be on Friday or on Saturday, right around that specific kind of mid-May is usually when we have those. And it's a really great opportunity for members to get together and serve alongside other AmeriCorps members. Most regions kind of intentionally mix and mingle their members on various teams, so you really get an opportunity to serve alongside folks that you wouldn't normally interact with. So it's a really great way to give back and to kind of feel the strength of the AmeriCorps within your region. All right, so this slide, I didn't know exactly where to put it, but it's all about reasonable accommodation. So if you're an individual that has a disability and you need a reasonable accommodation, AmeriCorps programs should be providing that for you. And there is some federal dollars that are available to help programs purchase reasonable accommodations if there's a cost associated with them for members that have a known physical or mental limitation, but they are a qualified AmeriCorps member. So if you happen to need a reasonable accommodation, please make sure that you're talking with your program director about receiving an accommodation for your service term so that you're able to kind of do what you need to do as an AmeriCorps member and that you're given the supports that you need to do that. All right, we're going to be talking now about AmeriCorps prohibited activities. So this is a really important thing to be aware of, that basically AmeriCorps members, there's a lot of legislation, rules, regulations around AmeriCorps, and this is one of the primary ones is prohibited activities. So AmeriCorps is designed around AmeriCorps members, providing certain types of services, but not being involved in other things. And so this is just to help you know what areas you need to be cautious and avoid, and what you're allowed and not allowed to do as an AmeriCorps member. So AmeriCorps members are prohibited from performing certain activities when counting member hours or while representing AmeriCorps. So typically that means you're wearing AmeriCorps service gear, you have a logo on you of one form or another, or you're identifying yourself as an AmeriCorps member while doing these things. So the caveat is that members may participate in any prohibited activities on their own time, at their own expense, and on their own initiative. So outside of your AmeriCorps service time, if you want to be involved in any of these things, we encourage you to do so. You just need to not be wearing AmeriCorps gear or identifying yourself as an AmeriCorps member or utilizing any kind of funding coming from your AmeriCorps program while you do so. All right, so there's a couple of kind of big categories for AmeriCorps prohibited activities. And the first one is political activities. So AmeriCorps was created on a bipartisan basis, and we want to remain that way. We want to have bipartisan support and funding to support AmeriCorps programs. And so political activities is something that members are not allowed to do while doing AmeriCorps service hours, while wearing AmeriCorps logos, or while identifying yourself as an AmeriCorps member. So things that you may not do is participate in efforts to influence legislation, including lobbying for your program. So when we talked about the National Recognition Day, we can talk to our legislators and government officials about the impact that we have as AmeriCorps members and let them know about our programs. We just can't take it to that next level and say, so we would like you to support our programs in legislation or that kind of thing. But we can talk about all the good things that we do and the impact that we're having with legislators. So that's just a caveat to make sure that you understand. Members may not write letters to Congress, organizing letter campaigns, things like that. You may not engage in partisan political activities or other activities designed to influence the outcome of an election of any public office. You may not participate in or endorse events or activities that are likely to include advocacy for or against political parties, political platforms, political candidates, proposed legislation, or elected officials. Printing politically charged articles in a CNCS-funded newsletter or listserv, social media, that kind of thing. Taking part in political demonstrations or rallies. Engaging in any effort to influence legislation, including state or local ballot initiatives, or being involved in voter registration drives. So all of that you can do outside of your AmeriCorps service while you're wearing plain clothes and you're just an independent citizen. But you may not do it as an AmeriCorps member during your service hours or while wearing your AmeriCorps service gear. The other big area that members are not allowed to be involved in is any kind of union activities. So organizing or participating in protests, petitions, boycotts, or strikes, assisting, promoting, or deterring union organizing, or impairing existing contracts or services or collective bargaining agreements. So again, anything union-focused, we're just neutral on during our AmeriCorps service term. All right, religious activity is another area that, again, during your AmeriCorps service hours, while you're wearing gear, you may not participate in. So engaging in religious instruction, conducting worship services, providing instruction as part of a program that provides mandatory religious instruction or worship, constructing or operating facilities devoted to religious instruction or worship, maintaining facilities primarily or inherently devoted to religious instruction or worship, or any form of religious proselytizing, so basically sharing your faith, encouraging others to join your faith. That cannot happen during your AmeriCorps service hours or while you're wearing AmeriCorps service gear. All right, other prohibited activities. So other activities that your program may not assign you include assisting with abortion services or referrals for abortion services, activities that pose a significant risk to you or to others, assignments that displace volunteers or employees. So when we talk about displacing volunteers or employees, what that means is you can't basically do the employee's job at any point, even very temporarily. So if an employee asks you, hey, can you fill in for me while I take my lunch break? The answer is no, I absolutely cannot do that. You can't fill in for an employee who's out sick for the day. You can't fill in for an employee who's on maternity leave. You can't fill in for somebody who has resigned or has been terminated. So AmeriCorps, again, has a very specific role for their members within an organization, and that's the role that you should be providing. You should not be stepping into any other volunteer or employee roles excuse me, while you're doing your AmeriCorps service term. And you're expected to maintain a code of conduct and professional behaviors at all times. Any violations could result in early termination or suspension from the program. So important things to keep in mind. One more thing about prohibited activities. So some things kind of are in a gray area sometimes, and you're not clear on whether it's prohibited or whether it's not. I highly recommend, if you are ever in that circumstance, before you do anything, to talk to your program director, talk to your site supervisor, and get permission ahead of time before you make a judgment call yourself. Because if ultimately you do a prohibited activity, what happens is they take those hours away from you anyways. Your site and your program might get penalized, so you don't want to go there. Make sure that you get approval for anything that is a gray area, and that approval may be no approval granted, but make sure that you're asking before you just do in that particular area. All right, let's talk about fundraising. So there are some allowable fundraising activities and there are some unallowable fundraising activities, and we want to make sure that you're aware of both. So first off, you can be involved in fundraising, but only for a portion of your service. So no more than 10% of your total service hours could go towards fundraising. And I would say the vast majority of AmeriCorps members, that percentage is much, much less. People don't tend to be involved in a lot of fundraising during their AmeriCorps service term, but know that the cap is 10%. CNCS policies permit fundraising by members to the extent that the activities are a direct support of your program's activities. So you could fundraise for a service project that your team will be doing. You can fundraise, let's say if you are providing books to children, you can fundraise for books or in-kind donations for books. You can write a mini grant for a variety of, funding for, to support a particular part of your AmeriCorps service activities. But you cannot do any kind of fundraising that involves raising funds for your living allowance, for your organization's general operating expenses or endowment, or writing a grant to CNCS or to any other federal agency. We're already receiving federal funds, so we can't double dip into the federal funding pot, I guess. So yes, you can do some fundraising. It has to be minimal, and it has to directly support your service activities and not support your organization as a whole or fund your AmeriCorps program budget. All right, and then some quick resources. So there are a few websites that you'll want to be aware of. One is the AmeriCorps.gov website. I'm sure that you've already been there for setting up your account on the portal and maybe learning about AmeriCorps just in general that way. There's also a Michigan's AmeriCorps page, which is www.michigan.gov/MCSC, and then there's a whole section on Michigan's AmeriCorps, including a link to member resources. So that's a great place to go to find those various resources. Michigan's AmeriCorps also focuses on highlighting AmeriCorps member service. So we have a Member of the Month spotlight, we have a Site Supervisor of the Month spotlight, and we have an Alum spotlight. So if you're interested in nominating a Site Supervisor for one of those or an alum or one of your fellow members, we love to spotlight members and give them recognition for providing a really great service in their communities. So that's a great way to go and encourage others and in their national service getting some recognition. And then there's the Corporation for National and Community Services website, so nationalservice.gov, if you wanted to learn about other types of AmeriCorps programs or see any kind of resources that they provide to AmeriCorps members. So that is the end of my presentation. Again, you get out of this experience what you put into it. So try some new things, stretch yourself, take some risks, and you'll be surprised at what you'll be able to accomplish this year. Use your network. Make sure that you're supporting each other. Lean on your program staff and your site supervisors when you have challenges or difficulty, and advocate for yourself. That's a really huge thing. If you're not getting out of this experience what you were hoping to, don't suffer in silence. Talk to somebody about it, because there's oftentimes ways that we can make your service year better, but we can't help unless we know how we can help. So thank you for deciding to do a year of AmeriCorps service. We really appreciate all that you guys are going to be able to accomplish and the impact that you're going to have in your communities. And I'm really excited to meet all of you at Member Celebration in November, and really hope that you have a great AmeriCorps experience, and then that it helps really launch your career or helps you really get whatever out of this program that you were hoping to.
Great. Thank you so much, Marcia. I hope you all feel like you have a better understanding of national service, how AmeriCorps fits in, and things that you are allowed to and not allowed to do. Does anybody have any questions for Marcia while we have her on the line? You are all unmuted, or you can type into the chat box. All right, well, I will take silence as no. So we will go ahead and end our call here again. Thank you so much, Marcia. We appreciate your time this morning.
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity.
Definitely. Bye, everybody.
All right, thank you, Marcia.